Welcome back, guys. This is part 2 in my video series showing you every single step you got to go through to build a racing drone, freestyle drone, quadcopter, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to start with a pile of parts on the desk, put them all together, configure them, and then take them out and be ready to fly. In a previous part, we built this guy. We got it all put together, and in this part what we're going to do is a basic, I call it a smoke check and function check. In other words, we're going to plug in a battery and make sure the darn thing doesn't light on fire. That almost never happens. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we get into this video, I got to let you know, down in the video description, there are links, number one, to all of the products and parts that I'm using here. If you want to follow along with this build, you can buy that stuff down there. Also, there's a link to the playlist. This video is one of a playlist, and there's a whole bunch of information in this playlist. My goal with this series is to get all this information into one place, as opposed to having it scattered all over the internet, making it hard for you to find what you need when you need it. So if you want to follow along, go down, click the link, and then follow along with the playlist. And the first thing we're going to do for a smoke check is we're going to get our multimeter out, and we're going to test to see if we've made any mistakes when we have soldered this up. And if you don't have a multimeter, I'm sorry to say, you just have to have one. It's an essential tool for working with electronics. You don't have to have an expensive one. They could be as cheap as 10, 15, maybe 20 bucks. You can use more expensive ones if you want to, but you got to at least have one. And the function that we're going to be working with today is the continuity test function. Now, on some meters, it is its own spot on the dial. On other meters, like this one, we're going to turn to the ohms function, and then we're going to press the select until we want to see this little, it kind of looks like a Wi-Fi icon, to be honest with you, but it's actually intended to represent the sound of a speaker beeping. And the way the continuity test works is when there is continuity between the probes, when electricity can flow between the probes, we get a beep. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we haven't accidentally made continuity where there shouldn't be some. So these two prongs of the battery plug should not have continuity, because if there is continuity, then when we plug the battery in, smoke's going to come out. That's the short version. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take, it doesn't matter whether you take the red or the black in this case, but we're going to take the two prongs and we're going to touch them to the two pins on the XT60, and we should not hear a beep. I slipped there, but we should not hear a beep. Now if I reverse these, do I hear a beep? Okay, so I wanted to show you that because when I put the probes red to red and black to black, there was no beep. But when I put the probes the other way around, there was a beep. And the reason for that is this little guy here is called a capacitor, and a capacitor can soak up a small amount of electric charge. And what the effect that has is when you test for continuity, you get a beep until the capacitor charges up, and then the beep goes away. That's okay, that's normal, and it does not indicate any problem. If you touch these guys together and you just hear a continuous beep, if you touch the XT60 and you just hear a continuous beep, you have a short circuit somewhere. Do not plug a battery in. We need to go take it apart and find like a solder blob or something that is accidentally short-circuiting these. Now, the chances of you making a mistake are much, much smaller because everything on this quad pretty much just got plugged in. So there's not much chance that you accidentally soldered something wrong. About the only thing you've got to get right is the positive and negative lead here on the XT60. Make sure that the polarity is correct. Red went to plus, black went to minus, and make sure that there's no continuity there. Great. So we're good to go on that. Now, that being said, I still like to use this little guy, and this is a thing called a smoke stopper. It's an automotive taillight bulb. We're all switching to LED bulbs now, and these are getting harder and harder to get, but I still build these out of these taillight bulbs. And the advantage of this is that if there is a short circuit or a fault, this can help protect against smoking. And this is I always use this on the bench. If you don't have one of those, I would recommend that you either make or buy one. And there's a link to my video about making a smoke stopper down in the video description. You can go check that out. The way this is going to work is I'm going to take my battery. This is a 4-cell a 4S LiPo battery. We're going to plug the smoke stopper into the battery, or into the, smoke stopper into the battery, and then we're going to plug the smoke stopper into the quad. And at that point, the quad will power up. A reminder, never power up your video transmitter with the antenna disconnected. You must have the antenna connected when we do this. And when we do this, hopefully we will not get any smoke. No smoke, no smoke, no smoke. And that's what we should hope to happen. Okay, so we got no smoke. That is fantastic. If you're using a smoke stopper and you plug this in and the smoke stopper lights up brilliant like the sun, that means you've got a fault. You should unplug as quickly as possible. You got a short circuit or something. Now we can start to double check that things are getting powered up. We can see here, for example, that the receiver is blinking. We can see the flight controller blinking. We can see the GPS blinking, and video transmitter doesn't seem to be powered on. Hold on. And we're back. I'm totally leaving this in the video because that's the purpose of the smoke check and function check, to check that everything just frickin' turns on. And in this case, the video transmitter didn't turn on. Like nothing. It didn't show any sign of life. And I tracked it down eventually. And okay, so this troubleshoot, it would be probably a lot to ask of someone who was a first-time build, but what ended up happening was that I had no output on the 10-volt regulator that powers the video transmitter, but I did have output on all the 5 volts, and it turns out that the 5-volt regulator is on the ESC, but the 10-volt regulator is on the flight controller, and the VBAT pin from the ESC to the flight controller was bent, and that meant that the 10-volt regulator couldn't power up because it needs VBAT to power up. And there we go. So, hope you enjoyed that. And now let's do our smoke and function check. Whee! See, I'm tempted to just pretend that was the first time I did it, but that's not how I roll on this channel. Okay. So, here we got receivers powered on. GPS is blinkety-blinking. Flight controllers blinkety-blinking. And the video transmitter is turned on. Okay, wonderful. Sure, the only thing that we need to check is the camera. There's no visible indicator that the camera is working, so what we're going to do is we'll take the lens cover off the camera. We'll grab our goggles here, whatever goggles you happen to be using, and we're just going to see if we can find the signal. Now, some goggles will have an auto scan function. That could be useful for this kind of situation. You never want to use auto scan when you're actually flying the quad, because auto scan sometimes picks a channel that's like close but not quite right on, and your range is much, much worse. I'm going to guess that this is on a Fat Shark channel, and I'm just going to go to Fat Shark band, I band or F band, and I'm going to scan. No? Really? Oh, I'm really shocked. Okay, well, it's not I band. What is it? Is it race band? That would be cool if it was race band. Race 2? I do have signal on race 2. Okay, so race band 2. I don't know if that's the exact channel that it's on or just a close by channel. But you're going to want to put your goggles on race band 2, and you should see image in the goggles. And I do. Got your camera working? Okay, so our basic smoke check and function check has passed. And the next thing to do is to go into the software and start configuring it and like getting everything talking to everything else. And that we're going to do in the next video in this series. But that's going to do it for this one. I'm breaking this one down into like bite-sized chunks so that, you can just see where all the steps lie. So short and sweet. Happy flying, everybody.